There were 17 crushed peanut shells on the bar in front of me. I counted them twice. Not because I'm neurotic, but because I needed something to focus on that wasn't her voice calling me an emotional leech, loud enough for the bartender to pause mid-pour. And that's how it starts. Not the relationship. The unraveling. We were at Birch and Ash, the bar we used to call our place. Even though it reeked like disinfectant and had one of those bathroom mirrors that make you hate your own face. We were with friends, her friends mostly. I only talked when directly addressed. She'd already had 2 vodka sodas and started sliding into her bold phase, the one where everything I say becomes sarcastic, manipulative, or, and I quote, classic Calder bullshit *T. I hadn't even said anything yet. When I finally did speak, literally just, hey, do you want me to get the next round? She tilted her head like I just offered to set her parents on fire. Oh my God, stop pretending to be considerate. Everyone went quiet. I felt like someone opened a trapdoor under me and forgot to let me fall. She kept going. She said I was performative, that I fake kindness, that I always play the victim. She called me a sad little PR campaign with a beard. And then, like flipping a switch, she sighed and said, I didn't mean that. You're just so sensitive. Calm down. I love you. She said it like she was bored, like it was a legal obligation. And that's the moment I realized I didn't know who she was anymore. Or maybe I never did. Maybe I loved the version of her I built in my head like IKEA furniture, backwards and missing a screw. I didn't cry, not in front of them. But I did excuse myself to the bathroom, where I stared at the faucet for 5 minutes wondering if I could fake a nosebleed. When I came back out, she was laughing. Hard. Like nothing happened. Like I hadn't just been emotionally mugged between a jukebox and a bucket of Coors. The others avoided eye contact. One of them gave me that pity smile people give at funerals when they don't know the deceased very well. But I sat back down. Because I didn't know what else to do. Because sometimes, when your heart's been cracking for months, the explosion feels like silence. I didn't know it yet, but this was only day 1 of the breakdown. The next 7 would make this look like a Hallmark special. When we got home that night, she kicked her shoes off like nothing had happened, poured herself a glass of oat milk, scrolled her phone. I stood in the doorway watching her like she was a stranger who had just let herself in with my wife's face. I waited for her to acknowledge what happened at the bar, waited for some kind of awkward half apology, or even a "you okay?" But nothing. Silence filled the room like smoke. So I said it. You embarrassed me. She looked up, confused. Where? At the bar. You called me an emotional leech. She tilted her head again. That same dismissive tilt. It's like a reflex for her now. Oh, come on, Calder. I was joking. Why do you take everything so personally? That's when I realized. She thinks I'm the crazy one. That's her whole story in her head. That I'm sensitive, fragile, needy. It's easier for her to tell herself that than admit she's been slowly detaching from this marriage like a Velcro patch from a washed-out jacket. I didn't argue. What's the point? I went upstairs and did what I now call the toothbrush test. It's stupid, but it's what I do when I feel like something's wrong and I can't prove it. I checked to see if her toothbrush was wet. It wasn't, which would be fine, except she always brushes before bed. Always. Even after wine nights. Even when she's sick. It's the only routine she never breaks. I know that sounds obsessive, but when you're losing your grip on reality, you start paying attention to the tiniest cracks in the wall. She didn't brush her teeth, because she wasn't going to sleep. She came to bed 20 minutes later, pretended to be exhausted, crawled in, turned away from me, and passed out instantly. I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying not to overthink. But that's the thing about being married to someone for 6 years. Your gut knows when their habits change. Even their fake sleep breathing was off. Too rhythmic. Too calm. So I did something I swore I'd never do. I got out of bed at 2:12 a.m. and I checked her phone. Before you judge me, I wasn't looking for dirt. I was looking for clarity. Just something. Anything. To explain the shift, the coldness, the public jabs, the weird late-night showers, and dead phone batteries. I just needed the truth, even if it broke me. But her phone was locked. She'd changed the passcode. That's when my stomach dropped. Because we used to have the same code. It was a dumb joke. 12/28, our anniversary. She thought it was cheesy. I thought it was sweet. Now it was just gone. Replaced. Like the rest of her. I stood in the hallway, holding her phone, staring at my reflection in the black screen. And I swear to God, I didn't recognize the man looking back. He looked tired. Pathetic. Like the kind of guy you wouldn't take seriously if he told you his wife might be cheating. The kind of guy who finds out last. I put the phone back, crawled into bed. She was already on the edge of the mattress, curled up like a comma. I whispered, "I love you." She didn't answer. Not even fake sleep breathing this time. The next morning felt like a hangover, even though I hadn't had a single drink. You know that thick, sour tension that clings to your body after a night of pretending everything's okay? That was me. I got up before her. She was still wrapped up in the comforter, sleeping like a baby. I remember just standing there, staring at her, wondering if she even remembered how she treated me last night, or if she even cared. Her face was so peaceful. Mine felt like it had aged 5 years overnight. I didn't make coffee. I didn't want the routine. I just sat at the kitchen table with my phone in my hand, scrolling aimlessly. Not reading anything. Just swiping to give my hands a job so my brain wouldn't spiral. When Lila finally came down, she was wearing one of my old hoodies like she used to. Hair messy, barefoot, soft voice. "Hey," she said. "You want pancakes?" I said sure. Why not? She hummed while she cooked, and for a few minutes, I almost believed things could go back to normal. That maybe I really had been dramatic. Maybe I was just sensitive. Maybe she was right. But then she opened the drawer next to the fridge, the one we both toss receipts into when we don't feel like organizing our wallets, and out fluttered a little folded square of paper. She picked it up, glanced at it, and froze just long enough for me to notice. Then she shoved it back in without a word. I caught the name on it. Wellhaven Inn, room 214. That's not a bar. That's a motel. I felt the air change, like it does right before a thunderstorm. I kept my voice steady. What was that? She didn't look at me. Just an old receipt. For what? She shrugged. I don't remember. I picked something up for a friend. Why? Now, you need to understand something. Lila doesn't lie well. When she's honest, her voice is sharp, direct, almost smug. But when she lies, her sentences shrink. They get softer, shorter, like she's trying to leave less evidence behind. I didn't know you went to Wellhaven. She smiled tightly, flipping a pancake. It was weeks ago. I forgot about it. I stared at the back of her neck, her hair tied up in a messy knot. I thought about all the little moments she'd been working late or staying at a coworker's place because it was closer to the supplier. Room 214. It rang in my head like a taunt. I didn't push it. I should have, but I didn't. Because something worse than betrayal was settling into my bones. The realization that she no longer even felt the need to hide it well. Like she knew I'd stay. Like she had already decided I was too weak, too attached, too tired to actually do anything about it. We ate pancakes in silence. She scrolled her phone between bites. I chewed slowly, tasting syrup and suspicion. Jupiter jumped on the counter, and she giggled and shooed him off. I wanted to throw my plate at the wall. Instead, I smiled, nodded, pretended. But inside, my brain was already spinning up a plan. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want drama. I just wanted to know the truth. Not her truth. Not my version. The truth with timestamps. So I waited until she went upstairs to shower. Then I pulled the receipt from the drawer, stuffed it in my hoodie pocket, and drove to the motel. Not to confront anyone. Not yet. I just needed to see it. Room 214. And what I saw when I got there made my hands go cold on the steering wheel. The Wellhaven Inn looks exactly how you'd expect a motel named Wellhaven to look. Like somewhere that pretends not to be used for things people lie about. I sat in my car for a full 10 minutes, parked across the lot like some twitchy detective in a low-budget crime doc. I kept the engine running. Not sure why. I think I needed an escape plan, just in case my own mind turned on me, which it was already halfway through doing. Room 214 was on the second floor, end of the strip. Beige curtains, rust-colored door, peeling gold numbers. I stared at it like it was a person. Like if I looked long enough, the door would open and confess everything to me. I wasn't expecting to see anyone. It was early afternoon on a Tuesday, but part of me was still bracing for it. I imagined Lila stepping out with someone I'd never met. Some guy with confident shoulders and no shame. Maybe they'd laugh when they saw me. Or worse, they wouldn't react at all. But the door stayed closed. No movement. I got out of the car anyway. The wind was sharp, the kind that makes your ears ache after 2 minutes. I walked slowly across the lot, half hoping someone would stop me, ask what I was doing, give me an excuse to back out. But nobody even looked up. The only sound was the rattle of a loose flagpole chain and the crunch of salt on the pavement under my boots. I didn't knock. That would have been pointless. Instead, I wandered past the row like I was looking for someone, or trying not to look like I was looking. That's when I saw her. An older cleaning lady, dragging a cart of fresh sheets and half-working vacuums. She had a gray braid and moved like someone who didn't have the energy for small talk. But I stopped her anyway. "Excuse me," I said, voice cracking on the second word. "Sorry. Do you remember who stayed in room 214, maybe a couple weeks ago?" She didn't answer right away, just squinted at me. Then, slowly, she shrugged. "We get a lot of people. I know. It's important. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I think my wife might have." I cut myself off. My voice was shaking. "I just need to know." She sighed and leaned against her cart. 214. I nodded. She looked away for a second, then back at me. "Young couple. Not married. At least, not to each other." My stomach turned. "You're sure?" She smirked a little. "He was wearing a wedding ring. She wasn't. I don't judge, but I notice things." I wanted to ask what he looked like. I wanted to ask if he was tall, what color his hair was, if he smiled like he owned the world. But I didn't, because I already knew what that smile would look like. Then she added, "They stayed twice. Second time she left something behind." I put it in lost and found. I didn't even have to ask. She walked back to the main office and came out a few minutes later with a tiny Ziploc bag. Inside was a single strand of red thread. My throat tightened. It was from a sweater I gave Lila last Christmas. A thick, wine red knit, she said, made her feel like a forest librarian. She wore it constantly, until a month ago, when it just disappeared. I took the bag without speaking. She gave me a look, not pity, not judgment, just a quiet, exhausted recognition. Like she'd seen 100 guys like me before and knew I wasn't the first, wouldn't be the last. I drove home in silence, gripping the bag like it was radioactive. I don't remember pulling into the driveway. Don't remember walking inside. But I do remember opening our closet and finding the red sweater jammed behind a pile of winter coats. It still smelled like her, but faintly. I sat on the floor with the sweater in my lap for a long time. Just sat there. Like maybe if I held it long enough, the truth would change. Or at least explain itself. But sweaters don't explain anything. They just keep you warm. Even when the person who gave it to you is somewhere else entirely. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, the red sweater folded beside me like a confession that wouldn't talk. Every sound in the house felt suspicious. The creak of the heater, the hum of the fridge, even Jupiter's occasional thud as he jumped down from somewhere. It all blended into this low, taunting rhythm that said, "You already know." That's the thing about intuition. It doesn't scream. It just sits there, whispering the same sentence over and over until you finally stop pretending you can't hear it. Lila came home later than usual the next evening. She said she'd been doing inventory at the shop. She was smiling, her hair slightly damp like she'd walked through mist, her eyes bright in that way that used to make me weak. I almost wanted to believe her. I really did. I even offered to help her unpack some new floral shipments. But she brushed past me, kissed my cheek absently, and said she just wanted a hot bath. I stood there in the hallway for a full minute after she closed the bathroom door, listening to the water run. Then I noticed something on her phone screen. It had lit up on the counter. A message preview flashed for half a second before it dimmed again. I didn't catch the name, but I caught the first word, missed. I didn't touch it. I couldn't. I told myself that I wasn't going to become the husband who snoops through devices. That's what desperate people do. That's what weak people do. So instead, I opened my laptop. I figured if I was going to spiral, I might as well do it productively. Maybe look at finances, distract myself with something concrete. But as soon as I logged in, a folder caught my eye that I didn't remember creating. It was buried deep inside our shared drive, under a generic name, miscellaneous_2023. Normally that wouldn't have stood out, but I'm the one who organizes our files. I know my digital clutter like I know the wrinkles in my own face. And this wasn't mine. At first I thought maybe it was from her work, receipts, or inventory spreadsheets. But inside were photos. Not many. 4, maybe 5. And none of them were recent. The first one was of our old living room before we repainted it. The second was of Jupiter on the windowsill. The third, that's where my breath stopped. It was a picture of Lila sitting on a bed I didn't recognize. Same green comforter as ours, but the walls behind her were beige. and there was a hotel lamp in the corner. The same one I'd seen outside room 214 at Wellhaven Inn. She was smiling, not posing, but caught mid-laugh. It wasn't a selfie. Someone else had taken it. The last two pictures were close-ups, blurry, quick, unimportant except for what they implied. She'd sent them to someone, or someone had kept them. I sat there frozen, staring at the timestamp. 2 weeks ago. The same week she told me she had an overnight shipment at the floral shop. I remember that night vividly now. She came home at 9 a.m., smelling like mint shampoo and cigarettes, which was strange because she doesn't smoke. I'd asked about it then, half joking, and she laughed it off. Maybe the driver did. And I believed her because back then, belief was easier than truth. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't even move the files. I just stared until my laptop screen dimmed and my own reflection stared back at me. I didn't look like someone betrayed. I looked like someone erased. When she came out of the bath, wrapped in a towel, she smiled at me like nothing was wrong. She said, "You okay? You look pale." I wanted to tell her that I'd found the folder, that I'd seen the photos, that I'd driven to the motel, that I'd spoken to the cleaning lady, that I wasn't crazy. But all I said was, "Yeah, just tired." And then she kissed me. Slowly. Familiar. Like habit. And for one awful second, I almost kissed her back. Later that night, after she fell asleep, I went back to the laptop. The folder was gone. Deleted. Not in the recycle bin. Not recoverable. Like it had never existed. But here's the thing. She couldn't have known I saw it. I never touched her phone. I never said a word. So how did she know to erase it? Unless she hadn't gone to sleep at all. The next morning, I woke up before her. That had become a pattern. I don't even think I slept. More like my body shut off for a few hours out of self-defense. Lila was breathing slow and steady, curled up with the blankets tangled around her legs like seaweed. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching her with the same thought on repeat. She knows. Somehow, she knows I know. I didn't go near the laptop. I didn't mention the deleted folder. I didn't even check the browser history, which, by the way, had also been wiped. Clean. Like she'd taken a vacuum to her digital life. It wasn't just shady, it was methodical. I started thinking, obsessively, about what else she might have hidden. What had I missed in my own house? How much of our life was even mine anymore? That's when I remembered the crawl space. We don't have an attic. Our house is one of those older ranch styles with a small crawl space under the back room, accessible through a loose panel in the coat closet. We rarely go down there. There's no insulation, no light. Just exposed beams and dusty bricks and the smell of forgotten things. I used to keep my old guitar down there until a pipe leaked and ruined the case. But Lila? She never used it. At least, I thought she didn't. I waited until she left for work. She kissed my cheek, just like she always did, but there was this flicker in her eye. Not guilt. Not regret. Something colder. Like someone closing the lid on a box they never want opened again. As soon as the door clicked shut behind her, I grabbed a flashlight and went into the closet. The panel was loose, same as always. I slid it aside and crouched down, crawling in like some half-formed animal, heart pounding, hands scraping against dry wood. Dust clung to my jeans. Spider webs brushed my ears. It was like descending into a memory I hadn't made yet. I inched forward until I reached the far side, where the floor dipped slightly, a weird, uneven corner that I always assumed was just poor construction. But now I wasn't so sure. I tapped my knuckle against the floorboards. Hollow. I pulled at one of them. Nothing. Then I spotted it. A small nail, barely sticking up. I dug my fingernail under it and lifted. It creaked. The board shifted. And underneath was a space just big enough to fit a shoebox. A black one, scuffed, duct tape around the edges. No label. My mouth went dry. I pulled it out. Inside were 3 things. First, a burner phone. Not her normal phone. No wallpaper. No passcode. Just one contact saved under a fake name, Ira. There were only 6 texts on the entire thing, all recent. One of them was from just 3 days ago. It said, "He suspects something. Don't come to the house." Second, a small notebook. Brown cover, no title. Inside were names, dates, short phrases, some in shorthand I didn't understand, some in code. There was one entry that made me freeze completely. It said, December 3rd, planted story about inventory delay, see bought it. No questions. That was me. See Calder. And third, a single Polaroid. Not of her. Of me. Sitting at my desk, headphones on, editing spreadsheets. It had been taken from outside the window. My stomach flipped. I remember that shirt. I wore it on November 18th. That means she, or someone, had been standing in the yard that day, camera in hand, watching me work like a bug under glass. I felt sick. My head was swimming. I sat there in the crawl space for what felt like hours, flashlight shaking in my hand, box still open in front of me. This wasn't just cheating. This wasn't just betrayal. This was surveillance. Coordination. Something I couldn't make sense of yet. Who was Ira? Why was there a burner phone? Why was she documenting lies about me like she was keeping a case file? I didn't take anything from the box. I didn't even move it. I closed the floorboard, slid the panel back in place, and went upstairs. I washed my hands 3 times. I threw my clothes in the laundry. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back at me. I was never paranoid. I was right. And now I needed to find out if I was in danger. I didn't go back to the crawl space the next day. I didn't need to. The contents of that box were burned into my brain like a slow brand. Every time I blinked, I saw the photo, me, caught through my own office window like I was just another object in my own house. Every time I sat down, I pictured the handwriting in the notebook. She bought it. No questions. The way she wrote about me like a task, a job, a target. My own wife. That word still echoed in my head like a joke I didn't get anymore. Wife. What does that even mean when you're being monitored like a lab rat in your own kitchen? I didn't work. I didn't eat much. I didn't even speak to anyone except Jupiter, and even he started avoiding me after a while. I kept checking over my shoulder, half convinced there were cameras hidden in light bulbs or mics behind the air vents. I kept the curtains drawn. Every sound became suspicious. Passing cars, neighbors' dogs, the ticking of the thermostat. My own thoughts felt compromised. If I tried to write them down, would she find that too? Had she already? By the 3rd day, I decided I couldn't live like that anymore. I needed answers, not theories, not assumptions, not some red thread on a wall conspiracy in my head. Actual answers. So I waited until Lila got home from work, still wearing her apron and that fake smile softness she puts on like makeup now. She kissed my cheek, walked into the kitchen, started telling me some story about a couple ordering 50 tulips for their backyard wedding. I interrupted her mid-sentence. Who's Ira? She froze. Just for a second. But it was enough. A crack in the porcelain. She turned around slowly. What? I didn't move. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, blocking her exit without making it look like I was. The name. On your other phone. Her face didn't change much. Just flattened. Like a painting being wiped clean. What phone? You know what phone. You've been going through my stuff? Her voice was cold now. Controlled. But not panicked. Not guilty. That's what struck me. No guilt. Just strategy. I found the box. Under the floorboards. Nothing. Not a single twitch. Then, finally, she blinked and tilted her head. So now you're breaking into my private things? It's our house. No, she said, with a slow nod. It's a house we both live in. That doesn't mean you get to spy on me. I laughed. The kind of hollow, humorless laugh you let out when reality finally tips sideways. Spy on you? You were documenting lies about me. You were photographing me through windows. What is this, Lila? Are you having an affair or running an op? Still, no flinch. Just that same cold, assessing stare. Then she walked past me, not quickly, casually, and poured herself a glass of water like we were discussing whose turn it was to take the trash out. You're spiraling, she said. You've always had this tendency to catastrophize. I talked about it with Dr. Keller. That stopped me. What? She looked over her shoulder. Our couple's therapist. You remember? Before you quit halfway through the sessions because you said you didn't like being analyzed? Yeah, I went a few more times alone. We talked about how you construct false realities when you feel anxious. I felt dizzy. The room tilted. You're gaslighting me. No, she said calmly. I'm grounding you. There's a difference. I found the burner phone. I said again, quieter this time. I read the notebook. I saw what you wrote about me. I saw the picture. There's no therapy note that explains that. She finished her water and finally turned to face me fully. Her expression was neutral. Boyd-like. What exactly do you think is happening, Calder? That I'm cheating? Spying? Building a secret case file against you in our crawl space? Does that sound rational to you? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because here's the thing. When someone you love speaks calmly while tearing your sanity apart, it does make you question yourself. It makes you hesitate. Makes you wonder if maybe, just maybe, you really are the one cracking. You need help, she said finally. Real help. And I'm willing to get you that help. But if you keep snooping through my life like this, if you keep making things up to fit your paranoia, they're not made up, then I won't be able to stay. That was the moment. The moment everything shifted. She didn't say she didn't cheat. She didn't say she didn't write those things. She just said I was the problem. And if I didn't stop looking for the truth, she'd leave. I stared at her for a long time. She stared back. I was waiting for the crack in her mask. The tremble. The mistake. But it never came. She was solid. Ice. And suddenly I realized, if she was lying, she'd already rehearsed every word. And if she wasn't lying, if she truly believed this version of reality, then I had already lost her mind long before I found the box. Either way, the woman in front of me wasn't my wife anymore. Lila left 2 days later. Not with a bang, not with a screaming match or suitcase dragging across the floor. She just left. She said she needed space, that she was tired of being accused, that she didn't feel emotionally safe. I almost laughed when she said that. Emotionally safe, as if I'd been the one hiding phones and notebooks and floorboards. As if I'd been photographing her through windows like some voyeur in my own marriage. She took her favorite mugs, her green coat, half the books, and none of the pictures. It wasn't dramatic. It was surgical, and I let her. Not because I believed her, by then I didn't, but because the energy it would take to prove I was right would have come from the last fragments of myself I still had left. And I wasn't going to give those to her. Not anymore. For the first week, the house felt haunted. Not by her presence, but by the absence of noise she used to make. The faint whistle she did when she cooked, the sound of her boots thudding up the stairs, the way she cleared her throat twice before starting a sentence, all of it gone. I thought I'd miss it. But what I missed more was the version of myself who hadn't yet been twisted into a suspect in his own home. I boxed up the red sweater. I donated it to Goodwill without leaving a note. I deleted every digital trace of her I could find. Photos, messages, voice memos. I even changed the ringtone she picked for my phone. Slowly, I started scrubbing the wallpaper of my life clean. Not to erase her. That's impossible. But to make room for silence. And in that silence, something new started growing. It wasn't joy. Not at first. It was stillness. And from that stillness came something I hadn't felt in years. Clarity. A few weeks later, I started therapy. Real therapy. I didn't do it to prove I wasn't paranoid. I did it because I realized I hadn't trusted my own instincts for years, not just with her, but with everything. I'd gaslit myself before she ever did. I'd minimized, excused, smiled through insults, rationalized coldness. That was on me. And healing, it turns out, isn't loud either. It's not a montage of crying in the rain and then laughing in a coffee shop 6 months later. It's waking up one morning and realizing you've slept the whole night without dreaming about betrayal. It's buying a new towel set and realizing the color doesn't remind you of anyone else's preference. It's sitting on the couch with a warm drink and hearing a noise, and knowing it's just the house settling, not a secret walking behind your back. It's peace, not perfection. About a month after she left, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, just a single page. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't even an apology. It was a goodbye. She said she hoped I'd find someone who doesn't make you question the ground beneath your feet. That was the only sentence that felt honest. I never wrote back. Now, the house is quiet, but it's mine again. I leave the closet light on sometimes. Jupiter sits on my lap more now, like he's not afraid of tension that used to hum through the walls. I don't check behind curtains. I don't second-guess every smile. And this morning, for the first time, I laughed at something dumb on my phone and didn't look up to see if someone was watching me for the wrong reason. The truth didn't break me. It bent me. But eventually, I bent back. I'm still here. And for the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid of what comes next.